Hello, my name is Olivia Rauschenbach. Today we are going to talk about a topic that may feel a little heavy or uncomfortable, explaining death to kids. Discomfort with this topic is exactly why it's important. Chances are you have already or will at some point in your life be faced with the challenge of talking to a child about the concept of death. Instead of redirecting that conversation, I want to help equip you for the role you could play in helping the grieving child. Adults are not the only ones who grieve. Kids do too. That may sound obvious to some, but maybe not to everyone. Have you ever thought about what kids understand about death and dying? How do you respond when a child asks if someone is actively dying? Unfortunately, just as no grief process is exactly alike, neither is explaining death and dying. There's no magically perfect explanation that does the trick. That might sound less than hopeful based on the topic of this presentation. However, there are plenty of practical ways to help an adult navigate such a conversation. Let's break it down by age group. But first, it's important to note that if the child you are speaking to is cognitively delayed, be sure to speak to them at their developmental level rather than their chronological age. First, children as young as infancy can be affected by death. While children of this age are unable to grasp the concept or permanency of death, they do experience routine changes. They're also observant of the emotions of others around them. As a caregiver, you can help by maintaining routines such as regular bedtimes, story times, feedings, baths, and always remaining available for physical comfort, such as rocking or holding. Children between about 2 and 4 years old are starting to talk more, begin to learn about the world around them. Children start to hear talking about death and dying from adults, but they're unable to comprehend the permanency of it. Because children at this age are learning about the world around them through play, they often think the person who died is only temporarily away and may even pretend to play with them in their make believe play. You may notice behavioral changes, such as acting out, emotional outbursts, clinginess. The most important tip to remember here is to use simple, accurate language when talking to the child. This leads me into what I hope is your biggest takeaway from this presentation. Avoid euphemisms. Euphemisms are confusing. They also hinder the grief process. Some of the most common euphemisms are sleeping, kick the bucket, lost, not with us, and passed away. The reason it's critical to avoid these words is because children do not yet have the capability to understand the deeper meaning, as they take what is said exactly at face value. Let's consider an example. If you were to say to a child, "I'm sorry you lost your brother," they may not understand what you're alluding to. Rather, the misconception that kids may interpret here is that their brother has been misplaced. They may be wondering, "Okay, well, where is he? When will he be back?" Instead, try saying something like, "Your brother's body stopped working. This means that he has died." Do your best not to shy away from words like death or died, because that's exactly what happened. For some kids, one sentence is enough of an explanation in the moment, and they've returned to play. They may ask more questions intermittently or re-ask questions at random times, but that's totally normal. If a child wants to know more information, you can always start by assigning a body part based on the person's actual death. Such, for an example, if a person dies of a heart attack, you can tell the child that the person's heart stopped working. Let the child lead the conversation. If they want to know more, just take it as it comes. Let's even think about one other type of scenario. How many kids play video games where characters die? A lot. Notice in the video games how the characters get more lives in the game, yet not in real life? That's another misconception. And that one even uses the word die. Make sure to meet the child where they are with their understanding so that you can help guide them. Around 5 to 8 years old, children are becoming more aware that death is permanent. Not all children will fully understand this, but some will. It's important for children in this age group to ask questions and often in order to deepen their understanding. You may notice behavioral changes, increased irritability or crying, sleep changes, development of aggression, things like that. Similar to preschool age children, avoiding euphemisms is critical for this age group. Children in this age group may also feel as if death was a punishment, meaning that they were responsible for it somehow, or fear that another loved one will also die and they will be left alone. Caregivers should reinforce to the child that the death was not a punishment and provide outlets for them to express their emotions. We will talk more about some self-expression ideas later in this presentation. Most children between 8 and 12 years old will understand that death is final. It's common for children within this age group to ask questions regarding the details behind a death. They may want to know why a person's heart stopped working, and they may even begin to blame themselves for the death based on something they feel they may have done wrong. They may even begin to worry about the safeties of others around them, such as if someone else's bodies will stop working and in turn leave them alone to fend for themselves. Aligning with the previous age groups, make sure you let the child take the lead on the conversations. Reinforce that they're safe and they'll always be cared for. Children within this age group may experience frequent mood changes, such as what appears to be unexplained shifts between anger, sadness, happiness, and others. There may also be changes with religious or spiritual involvement. A child who used to attend church regularly may be resistant to go following a death. If your family is religious, you can take time to discuss your belief system with the child. And of course, trending with other age groups, make sure to use accurate and simple language. It's the most appropriate. By this age, adolescents understand that death is permanent. Teens may or may not have yet had the realization that death will happen to everyone, including themselves. Adolescents may involve themselves in risky behaviors, such as engaging in alcohol, recreational drugs, and/or sex. This age group may also experience increased or decreased involvement in religious or spiritual practices. They may also have emotional outbursts. By providing adolescents with consistent support, answering questions that they may have openly and honestly, and encouraging self-expression, adults can make a positive impact in how they grieve. Speaking of self-expression, let's talk more about honoring the person who died. When someone dies, memories are all that remain. There are several ways a child can express their emotions about the person who died, such as writing a letter, drawing a picture, or decorating a balloon to release into the sky. There's tons of ideas out there. A child may also find it comforting to create a memory box filled with trinkets or items that the child feels represents the person who died. Some kids find it helpful to attend support groups. They can share stories and resonate with other grieving children. It can also assist them with coming to terms with the permanency of the death and create an environment of emotional support and expression. Adults can help foster conversations by reading storybooks about death, validating the child's emotions, and even allowing them to be a part of the funeral. It's a common misconception and concern that bringing the child to a funeral service will worsen their grief process or be too overwhelming. In fact, involving children in funeral planning, even as young as toddlerhood, can help with coping. If a child is attending the funeral, they can get more involved by making artwork to display or even reading a poem at the service. No matter what type of expression the child participates in, it's critical to just validate their emotions always. Grief is hard. This quote from Fred Rogers captures a sense of comfort when facing stress, so I wanted to share it with you. He states, "Anything that is human is mentionable, and anything that is mentionable can be more manageable." When we talk about our feelings, they become less overwhelming, less upsetting, and less scary. When it comes to talking to children, they do not always feel like they can have long conversations. They're just not ready for that kind of thing. So it's important to take it as it comes and answer the questions that they ask us. Death is a heavy topic, but imagine how much heavier it gets when it's repressed. I hope that you'll walk away from this presentation feeling more aware of how children perceive end of life. I also hope you feel more equipped to navigate conversations with the child about it. On this page, you'll see my references. Thank you.